greater Philadelphia area, this is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB, 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got a lot to cover today. We're going to be talking about inventory growth locally and nationally, rate prediction changes from Fannie Mae, a lot of news in the MLS world, and Lawrence Yun, the chief economist from NAR, is disappointed in the spring market. We're going to talk about expectations as we head into Q3 and Q4. If you like what you hear, make sure to click on the subscribe button on the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule with a call with an expert like Sarah, specifically on our team, to talk about your real estate needs, you can do that with the link in the comments. So inventory is growing. I think that's to me is like one of the best pieces of news we've seen probably since we started doing the show. This is the first time it's really gone the other way. To give you some perspective here, Sarah, new listings in the bright MLS Philadelphia metro area. So this is Philadelphia, the Collar counties, South Jersey, and the 2 northern counties in Delaware. We saw 10.5% more active listings on the market this past week than the same week a year ago. And nationally, we're seeing inventory is up substantially of where it was in 2022 and 2023. How has this been affecting your conversations with clients? What are consumers saying to you right now? I mean, you just had a banner month, which is very exciting, but I think there's a lot to unpack here because this is the first time we've seen options for people in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has, every day when you go on and you look at what is coming soon, what's coming up, or what just came to the market without that coming soon period, it's exciting because there's more options out there. And, I think in the past, when the inventory was tighter, the only options really, because we talk about, there's like 3 different pieces for what you can do. One of them being like location, condition, and price, you know? So in some cases, it was often like, well, you're going to have to go wider, or you're going to have to like take on more of a project. And now it's exciting to be able to put more houses in front of people.
Well, I think it also makes your job a little easier. I know some agents, they get like annoyed when they have to show more than one house, which I think is ludicrous.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely that attitude that's been out there, and a lot of those people aren't even in the business anymore. We saw a major drop off with renewals this past week alone, which is we're still getting the data on that. But you've been on both sides of this, and I feel like when you can show someone like 7 or 8 homes, I'm not talking a ton, and there's like 1 or 2 that kind of interest them, isn't that a lot easier than walking into one home and saying, all right, this is all we got for you.
Right.
Do you want to buy this or not? You got 15 minutes to decide. I feel like it gives people a better perspective if they're serious about actually transacting.
Right. And I mean, seeing a couple that they are, interested in, it I think helps when the right one comes up to be able to say like yes, versus if you're only, even if you look at 10 homes, but none of them are checking the boxes because this is all that's there. You're kind of making, in some cases, like making something fit that maybe they're giving a little more than they had wanted to. And this is something that you want to be exciting. When you get to the settlement table, you want to be like pumped about what is happening here. So, yeah, and I mean, I think I have very rarely shown just one house.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened to me maybe 3 times. Like literally, I know the people who it happened with. I know their names and I know the house because it's that infrequent. And
I have 1.
Yeah. And that's pretty normal, right? And I know who you're talking about actually. And it's that's the norm. That's how home shopping should be. And there's a mindset out there with consumers right now that they don't want to go look at properties. I don't want to waste your time, Sarah. How often do you hear that?
Yeah, frequently. And it is not a waste of time.
Yes.
It's a very important part of the process. And like now there's a line there for, if you know that there is no way that this is going to be affordable, or hey, we've looked at 15 homes exactly like this one, and this one has the same like negatives in your eye as the other ones had. It is sometimes you do need to kind of like make sure you're really refocusing and getting on the same page, but otherwise, no, like let's get out there and look at homes.
Well, and I think it's when they know they're not going to buy the home because of certain conditions, like, hey, I don't want to be on this side of the town,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't want gas heat, or whatever it is, or I
Right.
need a 4 bedroom. Like, those are things you can't necessarily fix. So I agree with you there, but at the same time, how often have you showed somebody a property where they're like, we're never going to buy this, Sarah. I don't know why you're showing this to us. And I'm like, well, this actually isn't that bad. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what a good agent does. Remember, 50% of consumers right now, they want their agent from home buyers. They want their agent to help them find a home. So I think it's really relevant to have that as like a tool in your toolbox as an agent, and you should be wanting your agent to bring other options to the
Mm-hmm.
table. I think that's a really important thing. So as inventory grows, how are you changing how you're talking to people? Are you changing the advice you're giving? Like, talk to me a little bit about how maybe things have changed from this time last year to where we are right now. Again, we're seeing 10.5% more. It may not sound like a lot to me. It's like night and day compared to where we were this time last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think always for me, like you have those conversations initially with your buyers about, what's going on in the market,
Mm-hmm.
what the competition level is, blah, blah, blah. But always it comes back to any individual house because there are homes that are going to, even when things are like flying off the shelf, there
Mm-hmm.
are some that are still sitting. So let's figure out like what to do with that. So I don't think I ever really give blanket advice. Like I'm never like, all right, in every case we're going to go, at least 15,000 over the list price and we're going to waive everything and we're going to offer them your first child and
Yeah. They may
like
not want the kid. That might kill the deal.
So I mean I've always been one that I want to look at all of the pieces that could go into it before offering advice. If inventory is growing, it makes sense that there would be potentially some homes,
Mm-hmm.
fewer offers, and the ability to negotiate, some different items that otherwise maybe you couldn't. But there are still going to be homes that hit the market that you're going to have to do all of the things for if you want to be the winning offer. So I would say very exciting that inventory is growing, but everything is still case by case basis in my eyes.
Well, I agree with that because there's always that like one neighborhood where people are going to fight over getting into that neighborhood, and that's always going to be the case. And you usually find that in like the move up neighborhoods where people don't really move out that often. They plan to be there 20 years. So that's pretty normal. To give some perspective here on the inventory growth that we're seeing. So we're seeing the year over year changes. We're still below where we were pre-pandemic, and I want to stress that for a lot of people. There's markets like Texas and Florida that are seeing double-digit percentage increases since before the pandemic. We are not one of those places. In the Philadelphia, Camden, Wilmington MSA, the metro housing market area, we're down 58% compared to where we were 5 years ago. So we're still ahead of 2023, 2022, 2021, but like 19 and 20, we're not close there. So while there are more options, I would also argue that home buyers need to realize there's still less options than where they were in a very healthy, normal market in 2019. Are you having to have those conversations as well? One person comes to mind right away where you have to do this.
Yes and no. I mean, I think for most people that I am working with, they were not in the market when
Sure.
prior to 2020, 2021. So they don't know what that bucket and what that time period looked like for being a buyer. So I guess no.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that then maybe you're doing a great job educating at the beginning, which I think where a lot of agents, usually fall flat. And in this new era of real estate we're going into with the NAR commission suit, it's going to be more important than ever to do that. So to give some perspective here, Lance Lambert and Freddie Mac, they did a great job putting this all together here. Lance Lambert's over at the Resi Club. So Freddie Mac came out and said to bring the vacancy rate, both rental and homeowner, back in line with historical averages, the U.S. would need to add an additional 1.5 million vacant for sale and for rent homes. That's a lot of housing, especially when you're looking at just the for sale numbers. They're saying at least 760 more housing units to the market, but we don't even have that many available right now. We're in like the high 500,000 range in terms of available listings on the market. Now, I do see this continuing to increase, especially as rates kind of stay where they are, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, because rates have been pretty consistent around 7. And I'm imagining that has a reason why we're starting to see more people come back to the market, because you can't wait it out anymore. So, with that in mind, I mean, how long do you think it takes for this shortage to be made up here? I mean, I think it's a big number.
Another year.
I mean, a year, that would be a lot. I mean, I think it's a year at least, right? And I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if we're ever going to get there.
Right.
So to understand affordability here, you're seeing builders now. They're still offering buy downs. They're doing things to be able to keep their construction going. I don't see, while inventory is increasing, I don't see it getting to like this buyer-friendly market that people think is going to happen, where you can really negotiate and the homes are sitting on the market. I think This is what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple years here, especially as we talk at the next segment what Fannie Mae's predicting and what's happening there. So when you get this objection, or I don't want to say objection, but maybe concern about the market, like, hey, Sarah, we want to wait, we want to take our time with this. What are you saying to folks right now?
I guess I usually try to bring it back to motivation and, what would need to change, or what does the situation need to be for you to want to buy, and what happens if those things never happen.
And what I'd be looking at is, and we talked about Fannie Mae adjusting their housing forecast and this just came out a couple weeks ago. So Fannie Mae, they do a lot of predictors: total housing starts, single families, multifamily. I want to talk about rates. So they drastically changed their prediction for mortgage rates, where initially they were predicting at the end of the year they're going to be at 6.4%, although rates did drop today to like 6.625. I saw that on the way in here. But the predictions now are at 7% by the end of the year, 7.1% in Q2 and Q3. And that's up from a 6.6 and 6.7% forecast. So they've basically upped it by over a half a point. And into next year, the average rate they anticipate seeing is 6.7%, which is 3/4 of a point higher than where they originally predicted rates at the end of 2025. Are you sharing this with people? Because I think there's this like, I'm going to wait for rates to come down mindset. And you still hear it, even though maybe it's not as common as it was a year or two ago. This is something I feel like we've got an obligation to share with people, because waiting 2 years, I mean, look at what's happened with pricing just over the past 2 years. It's incredible.
Right. I mean, every time that they make predictions, they get revised. Like,
yes.
When is it ever that they made a prediction and then that is exactly what happened? Like, I feel like it is always being revised. So and this is an example of, for people who maybe earlier this year were saying, oh, but they're predicting it's going to come down by, to wherever. Well, now they're predicting it's not. So,
yeah.
I think that's something that is out of our control. So control what you can, and what you can't. And do you want, what else can we do here? And maybe it doesn't make sense to move. Like, for not every person is moving the right option. But if you're somebody who does need to, and where you're currently living does not make sense, if we can't control the rate, what can we control? What else can we do? Because there's no saying that it's ever going to hit that condition. And if it does, how many buyers are going to be flocking back in?
Well,
a lot.
Well said, right? Sounds like a Dumb and Dumber quote there, or something close, right? I think I got that. So I agree with you, and this is why it's so important to educate people instead of try to close them. I mean, agents try to close way too often, and you see the people that just educate, like, that's the ones who win. I mean, you've had some clients you've worked with for a very long time, so have I. You never hear the agents that are selling a lot of houses saying, oh, I haven't worked with people for a very long time, or there haven't been those long-term deals that they close. You got stuff that happens fast, maybe a normal pace, and then there's the long-term pace, and that's just how this business is. And if you're not looking at this data and sharing with people, I like how you said they always get revised. So if someone says something to you like, hey, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. Well, hey, but Sarah, I'm not sure if you saw, but Fannie Mae just revised their projections for the rest of the year and into 2025. So wouldn't it make sense to revise our strategy based on this new information? And then you're not telling them like, hey, go buy a house, right? Or hey, let's jump in.
Right.
It's the experts are revising things. This new information, is that going to change your plans?
Mm-hmm.
And the question people need to ask themselves is, how certain are they that rates are going to come down? How certain are they that these things are going to happen? Because I don't see any data that indicates that. And especially when you look at mortgage purchase applications, and if I'm a seller, I'm paying very close attention to this. And we'll have Nick put all these charts up on the post edit here. This is from Housing Wire. So we are way below 2022 and 2023 purchase applications indexes all year long. The 2024 numbers have been far below last year and the year before, and they're kind of steady right now around that like 141,000 purchase application. It's an index, so it's 141.7. Excuse me. They've been around there pretty much all year. If you look at the chart here, you can see it. So that tells me demand's pretty steady, and the people that are transacting are the ones that have real motivation, like you talked about. And the only way to really, you've got, and motivation can kind of come in waves. Like at first they're motivated, then something changes, then it comes back, and like life happens.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, I've never had a client come back to me after closing on like getting the house, even if rates did drop and whatever, being like, I wish I would have waited, like ever. And like very frequently, I will, when I'm like following up and talking with different clients that got under contract and secured the home, I'm so glad we did it, like, and look at the equity that I built. Like, did you see, and like, if you send out the home valuation updates for, hey, in the year that you've now owned the property, look where, this is coming in at, people are happy. And, I think it's really easy, especially if that motivation isn't there, to kind of look for something like all of these things would need to be exactly right. But once you do it and once you get the house, like people see that as a win, and it doesn't really matter if rates did dip a bit. Because also we're not in that like totally volatile state where it's like, and next week they're 5%, and today you got 7. Like sure. It's kind of where it's at.
Well, and that's the good news about the market. It's a little more predictable now. Yeah. We're coming out of a very volatile period where there was some incredible things that happened for 2-3 years there. It was like every day something new was going on, whether it was a pandemic or a market shift or rates are going up. And now we're in this phase where this is kind of how the market was like before 2020. You got to navigate everything differently. And when you educate folks and you understand a couple key things here, all this data we just talked about, I have 3 big takeaways for consumers. One is these are the rates we can expect for the foreseeable future. If you're waiting for rates to come down or come up, you're playing a dangerous game there, because there's a lot of factors involved. Like, we've got a jobs report coming out this week. I'm sure someone's going to say something, the market's going to react. That's how it always goes. So these are the rates we can expect moving forward. There's also an opportunity out there right now. When you see demand start to drop a little bit, it doesn't mean it's a bad time to buy and sell. It means that there's a little less competition out there. Now, if I'm a seller, I'm wary of this because I'm seeing inventory rise. Pricing still very strong. We're dealing with multiple offer situations as well. There's good things happening, but you're seeing that mortgage purchase application, the index has been pretty flat this year, below the last 2. So we're seeing demand drip down a little bit. We're seeing inventory start to climb up. Prices are still accelerating, but not at the same rate. So if I'm a seller right now, and I know where I'm going, I'm taking note of that. And there's still opportunity, but you can't be like the last one to the party. I've seen that happen with clients before. And for buyers, I think there's the opportunity to actually get the house that you want and be a little more intentional with it, as long as you know all your options up front. So, and lastly, for the agents out there, the people that are motivated are going to be ones that transact, and that's always the case. So a lot of data to unpack. That we do see kind of the beginning of a shift here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the MLS news in relation to the Real Estate Commission lawsuit. This is very, very interesting stuff here. Next on Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over $165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com.
It's like hard to fit.
That's Tom, Toole with an E.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
For the best local mortgage service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to
Philadelphia Water Department.
Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments.
Aaron
To
was
learn
adding-
more,
asking
visit our
for Toole
website
Davis.
at mymortgageamerica.com or give us
It's
a
Aqua.
call at
Power and
610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized local service you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America is an equal housing lender. NMLS.
30 seconds.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer,
10 seconds.
down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Stand by.
America's equal housing lender. NMLS 128501.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Time, and we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line. The #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about, this is the juiciest MLS news you're ever going to hear. We're going to unpack that next. And then lastly, how Lawrence Yun is disappointed in the market and how to thrive anyway, as our team is coming off the best month we've ever had, despite all these feelings. If you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with one of our agents, specifically Sarah, to navigate these market conditions, make sure to use the link in the comments. So we've got the NAR commission lawsuit. And this is like the other shoe to drop, finally, because all we've been hearing is we want transparency, we want this, we want that. And there's really two changes that happened. One is compensation's coming off the MLS. The other is that you have to sign a buyer agency agreement in Pennsylvania, some sort of agreement in other states before you go tour a house. That's really what's coming out of this. And like, this was already agreed to, it's all been done. Well, now you got these MLSs coming out. And there's been 3 pieces of MLS news. The first one is from the Northwest MLS. And they said, hey, we're opting out of the NAR settlement. So let me read the statement, Sarah. I want your reaction here. This is just bananas to me that this is going on. So there's 2 reasons the Northwest MLS will not opt in. One, the NWMLS already has in place listing standards that improve compensation transparency and has had those changes in place for several years. And 2, the NAR settlement eliminates compensation transparency for buyers and limits sellers' choice by banning offers of compensation from MLSs that opt into the agreement. So they're basically saying we're ahead of the game on improving transparency, and that's it.
Wait, and how are they ahead of the game? Like, what is it
Well,
that
I
they
guess
did?
so. They've already, great question. So, they believe that. Let's see here. So, they've already made the changes that a lot of MLS has made. Like Bright said, you don't have to list compensation anymore, right? Like that's one of them. It wasn't ever a forced compensation offer, and so that's how they're ahead of the game.
But were they posting what the compensation was should the seller choose to offer it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're saying they're just saying we're not doing it.
We're opting out.
I mean, pretty much. So
I didn't know that was an option.
I didn't either. And what's fascinating to me is Michael Ketchmark, right? So this guy already he's getting paid now, right? So think about, I know you're not like a huge sports fan, but you ever seen the guys that like, they get paid and they're not as good once they get that big contract?
Sure.
So just keep that in mind when I read this. Time will tell how the NWMLS rules benefit home sellers compared to the NAR settlement. But as a rule, I'm always suspicious when the fox says it's guarding the chicken house, and that is what is happening now in Washington. That's Michael Ketchmark.
Wait, who's the fox?
I guess the fox is the MLS. I don't know.
Okay.
I think he's the fox personally.
Right.
With his 35% commission that he charged for,
Yeah.
Or 33.3, whatever it was, a lot more than what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I did not know that was an option to just be like, no.
Well, and the Northwest MLS has been a leader in this. I mean, they've been one of these cutting edge MLSs where and here's some of the statements, right? So instead of restricting consumer choice, NWMLS has seized every opportunity to enhance the quality of real estate brokerage services and will continue to do so. And accordingly, they plan to revise their forms and listing process in mid-August to ensure all sellers are aware of an option that currently exists when listing a property for sale, which means not compensating the buyer agent. I think everyone.
But they're still they're gonna continue to put on there the compensation.
Yeah.
All right.
But wait, there's more here, Sarah. So
wait.
well, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So then you got the CRMLS and Bright MLS. So we're part of Bright.
Yep.
Bright's the second largest MLS. CRMLS is the California MLS. They're the largest. And now they're offering a concessions in price field.
Okay.
So here's some of the examples. This is right from the Bright website. Here's some of the examples of concessions. Right now, you can just pick yes or no, and it doesn't tell you what it's for. So there's going to be 4 new editable fields detailing specific concessions and how they were used, how they're supposed to be used. One is amount paid by seller for home repairs and improvements, so like carpeting credits, that sort of stuff. The other is amount paid by seller toward finance-related costs. The third is amount paid by seller for buyer broker costs. And then last is amount paid by seller towards closing costs. So,
and they're saying they're going to put all of this in at the beginning, when they put
it's
up
a
the
field
listing.
you can put up. So right now you have X percentage, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's in there. So that's going away. That's gone. But instead they're going to have 4 editable concession fields, and one is amount paid by seller for buyer broker costs.
And you wouldn't have to put something in every field. You could just go in and put.
You could put nothing in all the fields.
Right.
It could all be zeros.
Yeah.
But doesn't this sound like the same thing that the
And
lawsuit?
can you do a range for
I don't know if you can.
compensation?
That's a great question.
This to this based on the purchase price.
Well, you can put a percentage or a dollar amount, is what
Oh,
they
they
say.
let you put. They're gonna let you put percentage.
Like, doesn't this sound like the same thing to you?
That's the exact same thing.
So, what's your take on this? Because if the CRMLS is doing this, Bright MLS is doing this, they're not just like, hey, screw it, we're going to just go against this lawsuit here. They've probably talked to attorneys about this. I can't imagine that this is like a rogue movement here.
Right.
I feel like they're standing up and saying, hey, this is ridiculous, and you don't have to do it. It's not an offer of compensation. It says the seller's offering this concession. And look, there's a lot of concessions, right? Yeah. HOA assessments are often a concession that's offered by sellers. Like, have you ever seen one of those, like a special assessment? Mm-hmm. Closing costs, finance costs. Seller assist is very common, and it was much more common before the pandemic. I'm shocked by this.
Right. So they're just calling it something that's the exact same thing, but they're just calling it something slightly different. They're calling it a concession. But now would it have to come out as, if it's a concession to the buyer, then the buyer would be the one directly, I'm thinking about one like the settlement sheet. So it would go like, seller gives X credit towards this to the buyer, and then in the commission portion, buyer is technically paying their agent, but it's just like lining up with what the seller credited them.
I mean, I don't know how the settlement sheet's going to work, because that's a little different than what Bright's saying, because that's probably not going to change. I mean, a concession can be a lot of different things. But then there's more. So there's also going to be a form and an MLS disclosure and residential seller and landlord options. And it says on here with Bright, and this is right from the Bright website, it says your contract with your broker. And as seller or landlord, how can my broker use Bright to market my home? Your broker's going to develop a marketing plan. When will your broker begin providing services related to the home? You put a date in, Use Bright to share my home's information with open marketing period beginning blank. This is basically to help with like coming soon listings and all that stuff. And so, I mean, it looks like they're listening to what the lawsuit is saying, but I mean, to me, it just seems like they're just saying, I'm not going to do this. We're going to offer this out. This is silly because like the real estate agents aren't allowed, like we have to have a broker specific site to advertise all commissions. So can you imagine we carry, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 listings at a time? What's the last listing you sold where you had like a lot of activity the first weekend? How many showings did you have? Give me an example.
Probably 40.
Can you imagine 40 phone calls from real estate agents saying, Sarah, are you cooperating and are you paying a buyer agent fee?
Maybe I'll just start changing my voicemail a lot.
Yeah,
If you're calling for this, the payout is this. If you're calling for this address, it's this.
Well, I mean, I actually thought about that as an idea for us to handle this, like almost like a movie phone. If you remember those things where it's like press 1 if you want to go see Batman, and if you want to show this listing, press 1, and because it's not scalable to deal with all these phone calls, and this is something that no one's really even talking about. But it's great for the agent that does 1 or 2 deals, but an organization like ours, like we're trying to sell a lot of real estate.
Right.
I mean,
well,
even if you got like 5 listings launching one weekend, it can be insane.
Right. Well, and even if you did do an automated system, it's just
a waste
such
of
an
time.
Annoying extra step. And then how often are you calling into one of those things and you're just like end up like yelling into the phone like speak to representative? I feel like
this is what goes on at the Time and Hogue household.
every time I have to call one, but right? It's just like a whole nother level of like just some thing you have to do that's just like unnecessary and irritating.
Well, and what's going to be interesting here is these are the 2, I would argue, most influential MLSs. And then you got Northwest MLS just like, hey, we're good, we're out on this. And I find this very interesting because the MLSs are the people that have, of all these groups, right? You got the big companies that all settled. You got NAR. You know how we feel about them. I think I can confidently speak we both feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And then you got the MLS, which is what everyone really wants. They want access to the MLS. As a real estate agent, that's what keeps me, as a member of the local board, because we don't have an option.
You can't do it without it.
I couldn't imagine. So the fact that they're doing this, they've talked to their legal counsel. Yeah. They've gone through all this. I think this is going to be really interesting to see what happens now that we're getting into, like, who else is going to opt into this? Is this going to be like a more common thing? Because these 2 MLSs, they've got some power. I mean, they're very large. And
what if the end result of this, after all of this, is just if you want to opt out, you can opt out. It's like, how annoying for the amount of time, money, energy that like went into this. If I don't know, it's just like.
Well, we've seen some changes internally. Yeah. So I mean, I like this we have a large organization. We're a listing focused team. Like Wendy, our ops manager, was like, how are we going to deal with all these phone calls? Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, like we've talked about like just the things that waste your time. Right. And agents don't read anything anyway. So, I mean, you can put showing instructions up. How many calls do you get where they don't even read anything? They just call you right away. So, I think this is good for people that are listing focused. You got one listing, it may not be a big deal. And some people have that badge of honor, like, I'm calling everyone back. Like, that's not a good use of your time. Like, it's just it's not efficient. So, I think if more MLSs follow, then this is going to be very interesting how this plays out. Now, internally, what we've seen in terms of changes is buyers are aware of their fee. I mean, we had that. You were there last week. We had our buyer conversion workshop that we run a couple times a month, and the transparency around what buyers are responsible for, I would say, is at a new level. We're just talking about it. We're letting people know should be doing these things, and I think that was really the intent of the suit more than anything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't have to go this far. I think it is. I mean. Talk to the companies that had to settle all that millions of dollars, and then you get the MLS saying, "Hey, we're good anyway." I mean, it's a little ridiculous. So I think I think this is the argument everyone has with the DOJ, right? We talked about that last week, where they implement it, they sign something, and they're not going to move ahead anyway. So very, very interesting here. So do you think more MLSs are going to follow suit?
Yes.
I agree.
Because why wouldn't they? As long as there's no legal repercussions for being able to do it, why would you not?
Mm-hmm. Well, think about the crux of this is transparency, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine the listing agent doesn't call you back before a showing, Sarah. Has that ever happened to you before?
Oh, never.
Right? Never. Right? So it happens all the time.
Yes.
And maybe they're in a meeting. Like, it's not even anyone's fault.
Yeah.
But, like, hey, we want to go see this home in the next 3 hours, and you got a listing appointment, or you're doing whatever else. So that's a very likely scenario. You can't talk to the listing agent, right? They don't have a brokerage website set up. And your buyer wants to go in and look at the home. Well, now the buyer doesn't know if the seller's paying something or not.
Yep.
So that's actually the opposite of transparency. So that's where I see these companies and these MLSs coming from, because when you can go in and say, and I know what this happened to an agent on our team over the weekend. He had a buyer agency agreement with somebody, said they were going to pay him X percent. The seller was not offering that. And at the showing, when he walked in, he said, hey, so if you like this home, here's what you're going to be responsible for. Are you okay with that? And broke down the numbers. And the buyer said, yes, thank you for telling us before we got there. And they ended up buying the house and making up the difference. So the transparency was there. But if you didn't know that going in, it's some people are not that communicative. So I from the idea of transparency, this is going to be a win for the consumer at the end of the day. I mean, and you never had to offer out compensation in the first place.
Right.
Did you ever show one of those Ryan Holmes jobs where they co-opted like $500?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, before it was like, hey, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And Ryan Holmes is just pumping these things out, having people bring their clients in there. So
yeah.
If you want to tell me commissions aren't negotiable, go talk to Ryan Holmes and see what they've been doing the past couple of years. And that's a very large national company.
Right.
So I do agree. I think this is going to be a trend we see here. Now, I'd also be curious if they get sued for, like, this is like, could there be another lawsuit that comes out of this? That's the next question.
No, we'll have more to talk about.
I don't think it's going to be Michael Ketchmark, though, because he already got paid. He got the bag.
Yeah.
He's been very, like, indignant and, like, this is ridiculous. I don't stand up for this. That comment does not sound like someone that's as fiercely after what's right for the consumer as he was beforehand.
Right. That's true.
Interesting times here. So this is actually a win for brokers as well, because, I mean, and agents and everybody. I see this as a good thing. I mean, otherwise you're going to have to build all these separate sites. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about how Lawrence Yun is disappointed in the market in the spring 2024 selling season and how to thrive anyway, and some market expectations and predictions as we head into the second half of the year next on Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
You shouldn't have to deal with all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time home buyer programs.
A concession rather than a commission.
Bright's not going to do that, I can tell you right now.
For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you.
Hey, when are you going on
Our
vacation?
team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life,
You mean like
and
for
an unbeatable
like the
culture.
radio show?
Agents who've been with us for at least a year average 30 plus sales. Even our brand new agents average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at realestateScholarshipProgram.1 or visit the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line at TomToole.com.
What is nice about the show being on Tuesdays is like we have a couple like
more
long
out of your
weekends,
real
but
estate
I'm
career.
back.
And
Yeah,
remember
Tuesday's
the
a
real
good
estate
day.
golden
It's actually,
rule.
I was
You
pretty
always
happy
get
with
more when you work with Tom
Mondays are
Toole.
like,
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great
Like if it was like a
service just
Monday
to
or
get
like a
great
Friday,
rate.
I
And Mortgage
feel like
America,
we
we've
wouldn't
been
have
lending
done
with this philosophy for 35 years.
Just filming this
We have
podcast
access
on
to
Friday,
great
let's
low
put it
rates
tomorrow.
without the
We gotta, like,
complications and delays of
we
big
could
or
do this
online
Thursdays.
banks. We're a
Right,
local,
right.
Pennsylvania
At least for the
lender with
summertime.
loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage
Where'd Eric have to travel to?
including first-time buyer programs and low down payment
Michigan,
options. For your
and
free
then-
I was
approval,
missing
call
a
us
couple
at
weeks ago.
610-439-8000 or apply
So
online at
yesterday I had to fly to Michigan. His flight got
in
delayed.
Detroit?
In
Have you
Detroit, his
considered
flight
a
got delayed,
career
so
in
he
real
had to spend like
estate?
5
Do you
hours
want
in the Detroit
control
airport.
over-
Then we'll
Have a
fly
license
to
or not,
DC,
call us
I
today
think
at 610
tonight. Have meetings there tomorrow and then take the
6976
Amtrak
or
home
visit
like tomorrow night.
Well, that's not bad.
Join
The
our
Amtrak's
team,
like
the
salad.
Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX. Stand by.
All right, all right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And Lawrence Yoon came out and said he is disappointed in the spring market activity. We're going to unpack that next and how you can still have a banner year with some serious behavior and habits that you can implement literally in your business, like as soon as you get done listening to the show here. If you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. It only takes like a second, would mean a lot to us here. And if you want to talk about your real estate needs, and if you've been disappointed in what's happened this spring, Sarah Timon and our team can help you with all that. Just click on the link in the comments. So, these articles always come out. And Lawrence Yoon, he's one of these guys like NAR just dusts off every once in a while. He's got a pretty good job, right? Like, comes out, says some obvious stuff about the housing market, and then you don't see him again for a while. Like, I'd like to have his job. I think that would be and in all seriousness, he does know what he's talking about. So, we looked at some, we're talking about, kind of how mortgage rates have flattened a little bit. We got this jobs report coming up, the Fed meetings happening, and Lawrence Yoon called the typically brisk spring home buying and selling season a disappointment when classifying the market activity, which I was a little surprised by. I mean, but then you look at the data and you can kind of see what he's talking about. So NAR reported the annual sales rate of existing homes dropped by 1.9% from March to April, while the sales rate for new homes tumbled 4.7% during this same time period. And what's interesting is you got to know what's going on in the market, and then you look at what's going on in your business. I would call the spring anything but a disappointment, right, for what we've been doing with our team. You had a banner month, Sarah. You're like, yeah, no big deal. Of course I did.
I was happy with the spring market so far.
Well, and I'm hearing this, and then I'm seeing what's actually going on and looking what's happening in Pennsylvania, and it's kind of surprising to me from what we're seeing inside our company, not from an economic standpoint, because I think the economy's in a really weird spot right now. Yep. There's hesitation because of this election coming up. Who knows what these debates are going to look like? It's going to confuse everybody. Like, this is going to be nonsense that goes on all summer long. So, what have you been doing to stay consistent, Sarah? I mean, because I think it's, you had a really big month last month, but it's been like the compound effect. Like, it's not just one, it's not just like I had a good 30 days or anything like that. It's been over and over again. So, what are some of the disciplines you've implemented, maybe changes you've made in your business, or you just did more of certain things that are really helpful?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to just talking to more people more often. And I think there was, not everything that I was able to get under contract over the last month or the last 2 months was, again, like you said, just from like, oh, it's not like I met them and then a week later we got under contract. Mm-hmm. It was like things came into place for people. Some of them I hadn't been working with as long as others, but
sure.
I think it's just continuing to get people out and to look at houses and to talk about the market. And I think there's like an element of just staying positive, it's not all like doom and gloom and like, let's see what your options are and let's figure out how to make it work.
The staying positive part is very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen someone with negative body language before?
Yeah.
What do you think of them?
It just it doesn't make you want to be around them, and it also doesn't make you feel good about what is happening.
So imagine that person's guiding you in like this really stressful decision, right? Or if something goes wrong, and you do a great job staying positive. That's one of the things I've said to you the entire time we've been working together. It's like, hey, this happened. Let's move on. I'm all about moving forward. And you really need that in this business.
You do.
Because what can go wrong will go wrong. I mean, all sorts of things happen that are just entirely out of our control. So, staying positive, it's not just like how you talk to people. It's like how you deliver bad news, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to ask them like, hey, Sarah, how's it going? You know how it's going. I'm waiting to hear from you, and there's a problem coming on. Like it's, hey, don't have good news. Here's where we are, and here's the plan moving forward. And I think those next steps are pretty critical.
Right.
So I love that. You're talking about having more conversations consistently. So, like, what kind of conversations are you having? Because a lot of people say, I don't have anybody to call. I don't have anyone to talk to. I call nonsense on that, BS on that every single time.
Yeah.
What have you been because I know you've been getting into the CRM more. Like I've seen like some changes you've made over time.
So I think if it's people that have not been like active on the site or haven't been responding to anything, just calling to check in and see what, like, are they still looking? Has their timeline changed? Just like, a check-in. For people that are on the site, sending sending individual properties over and being like, what do you think of this one? So maybe not leaving it, you never just want to solely leave it up to clients to reach out to you and say, hey, I like this one and I want to go take a look at it. It's kind of just continuing to like put things in front of them so that they know that you are on the top, they are on the top of your mind, you know? And you can't do that with everybody. You can't have, you can't be sending hundreds of people a day, different properties. But, I always go through, I usually do it in the morning and then again in like the afternoon or the evening, just to see what's popped up today, you know?
Yeah.
And let them know about it. Because oftentimes people are searching all the time. So they may have already seen it, but so you don't want to be sending something to them a few days later. Like you want to get something to them pretty quickly because either that way you're bringing the property to them, or even if they were searching and they saw it, they know that like you're looking too.
I agree with that, and I think that's really important. I mean, there's so many examples of people who are like, wow, your timing was impeccable. I can't believe you reached out to me at this time. And, I had a conversation with someone I've known for like over a decade, met him, through like a networking sort of work event. And I knew they were thinking about moving. And I said, hey, did you see what the neighbor got for their home? Right. Great piece of, it's a knowledge-based follow-up. And I get this text back at like 9:00 at night. Your timing is impeccable. I'm thinking about moving to Florida, and that's not that one text. That's all the stuff you've been doing up until that, and then it just pops. And that's usually where it happens. And I would say you probably have like 3 buckets of things you can be doing. One is the tactical side, like what you're talking about, like reaching out to people, sending them properties. The second's the relationship side, and the third's going to be the knowledge side. So the relationship side to me is that if you don't know how to talk to people. Like, have you ever met someone, like, they know what they're talking about, and they're very well-versed, but they just can't have a normal conversation with somebody? Yeah. It's a big problem, and I think you have to look at the ability to actually build a relationship and prioritize your client instead of just, treating them like they're just another number in the system, and that's a skill to develop. So what have you done to build relationships? Because that's what a great agent does is they build relationships, and they could be doing a high volume relationship business, but they're still building relationships on some level.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking to them about things other than real estate at different times, like remembering if there's something important going on with them, or like if they're having a surgery, or if they're having, their kids are graduating or whatever, just like being able to like have a personal element to it aside from just, hey, are you looking to buy a house? And I think there also is different people like different communication styles, and like you were saying, like there can be people out there that that they know what they're talking about, but for whatever reason you just cannot get on the same page as them. Like everything is almost like confusing where it's just like, wait, what? So kind of being able to adapt to different people, and you're not going to be able to connect with everyone, but
I think that's a really great point.
And like there are some people that like you're just not, for whatever reason, like you just don't like vibe, or like you just like don't get each other, so being aware of that, but then also just working on communicating and how do they like to communicate, and I guess just asking different times too, like if what you're talking about makes sense, and kind of checking back in, like, hey, do you like how I'm sending you properties? Or do you have any questions with anything that we've been doing in the process? And just because you said it once doesn't mean that now it's like clear and move on forever. Like you have to like circle back for things and just kind of continue to check in on how people want to move forward.
If you're not going to vibe with everybody, you've got to talk to more people. Like that's it. Like, and it's always when someone's not feeling what you're saying, or they're not like interested, or they're not believing it, that's one of the toughest sales you're ever going to run into. So the better solution is just find more clients, and then you can pick who you want to work with. So all that in mind, that's what we got this week. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel if you liked what you heard. Click on the bell for notifications. It'll take literally 2 seconds out of your life. It would mean the world to me and Sarah. We'll be back next week. You want to follow her, she's at Toole Time on Instagram. You can follow me at TomToole3RD. That's it for this week's episode of Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Do you want me to just forward you the email that I sent to the Karens with like the listings for the comps for Eric?
Yeah, if you want me to look at it, yeah. Yeah, whatever works. Bad time to be named Karen. Yeah, I'll look at it.